do you feel like the bye week helped the Texans? 713-572-4610. Because Lopez, it seems like you're coming from a place where you're like, nah, this did not help.
No, it didn't. I don't see how you can say, okay. I mean, it helped them like individually,
get some rest
as a group with the red. We all knew that already. That was going to happen no matter what. But man, like a lot of things happened this weekend that had they gone the other way, you would have felt a lot better about things. Specifically, not because you're a Texans fan, but your people's Browns.
Oh, what they do?
They ruined it for everyone.
I mean, they did what is kind of expected, right? Like, I don't know, did anyone expect the Cleveland Browns to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah.
Because that's the game that you're referencing, right? I think the reason why you, John Lopez, look at the Texans and be like, the NFL schedule on the bye week, which, by the way, woof,
Yeah, it was ugly.
that was not really fun
All kinds of Hughley
to watch. Yeah. I for some reason I didn't realize that there were 6 teams on bye this week. I thought it was the typical kind of 4 teams, and I was like, man, this is feeling real light, and the light is feeling real nasty. And that's in part because the Texans and the Ravens both on bye, as well as the Commanders, who will give you an interesting game. They're on bye as well. The Broncos, who would give you maybe a decently interesting game, they were on bye. I mean, I don't know what to say about the Colts and the Patriots. I don't know how much you really miss them when it came to the schedule. But, yeah, it was a little nasty. However, one of the games of consequence, as we mentioned, Steelers-Browns, it kind of solidified something that we were kind of cruising towards, which is that the Texans have probably locked it to its forward.
Well, they were leaning that way anyway. But 2 things coming out of the weekend on this Reaction Monday. My reaction revolves around 2 things. Number 1, they are locked in. Like they are locked into the numbers.
There's that definitive John Lopez statement, baby.
They are. I mean,
It's a lock.
You didn't hear Vandy earlier?
Yeah, Vandy. Like, how can they be the number 2
Vandy's
seed?
like, hey, man.
And I'm like, pixie dust. That's
The
how.
Bills lost to the Rams in what was an up and down thriller, 44-42. Right? They came back and only just came short. Hey, man, yeah. All you need is the Jets to find a little bit of chutzpah.
Well, and 2 games against the Patriots, too.
You know what I mean?
Like,
That's all you need.
What about 2 games against the Patriots, 1 against the Jets? So the Texans, okay, I'll back it. Just more than likely.
There it is. Look at him tempering. Look, he got an iPhone. All of a sudden, he was like, I need to temper what I say.
More than likely, most likely are locked into the number 4 seed. That ain't great. And that revolves around the second thing. That means they're going to face more than likely.
Yeah, he's learning.
Either the Ravens or Steelers here. I don't like either of those matchups. I mean, you didn't like the way it was stacking up anyway, but you got Ravens or Steelers here. Right now it's the Ravens. Yay. That's the team that made you look.
Are you scared of the Ravens right now?
What was the last playoff game like against the Ravens?
Hey, that's a different year, man. That's a different year.
And then of course you would go to most likely what? The Bills?
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you won, you'd probably be the lowest seed. Well, I mean, if you're just assuming that, it goes chalk on a tournament, you get the Chiefs, wouldn't you? Right? Like, because the Chiefs seem like they are touched by the hand of God.
Yeah.
Right? And that they will never lose, even though they deserve to it sometimes, or I guess deserve.
But the Bills have the tiebreaker against the Chiefs.
Yes. The Bills are also 2 games behind the Chiefs, right? That's the issue that you have there. But you say like you likely face off against the Ravens. I mean, the Chargers have the same record as
Ravens
the
or the Chargers
right now as well. They're there. Why does this cap? Broncos have the same record as all of them as well, 8-5, right? All these teams sitting at 8-5, and we were talking about this. Do you think you're better than these teams? I don't know. I mean, the Ravens are real up because I was like, I don't know that the Texans show themselves to be better coached than any of these teams. The Ravens kind of get a little dicey, except the high water mark for them is crazy when they are actually humming. But yeah, that is the thing that I think is the tough part about this weekend is that, again, you look up at the top of the AFC or just the AFC in general and you go, I don't think any of these teams are anywhere near infallible. You just had another one of those Chiefs getting away with the games, right? Where they absolutely they needed a doink. They needed a bank shot to get themselves over in a game. And the Buffalo Bills went up and down with a Rams team that does not have a great record, although they are finding themselves healthier.
Yeah.
But both of those teams were playing relatively good teams and doing that and having that competition level. it still feels like in watching those games, or I guess let me ask this as a question. Like, with the way that you saw this weekend go, also, don't forget the Dolphins, who you're about to play.
I was just about to mention
had
that.
a game where they went toe-to-toe with the Jets, and it came to overtime for them to get over it. Do you feel any better about, like, maybe not the circumstances, like when it comes to fourth place, third place, like the way that the playoffs stack, even though matchups matter in that situation? Do you feel better about just the general play of the Texans compared to the rest of the AFC after this week?
Well, the general play we'll see because of the off week and some rest, and see how they respond with adjustments and all that stuff.
You heard what I heard, right?
Yeah.
What'd he say?
Don't worry about it. Continue.
The general play. Either way, to be determined. To be determined of all the things that have to happen, coming off the bye week, I think.
So I think one of the things that it feels like is settling in, I think 979 H-Town fan on the YouTube spoke to this. He said, I'm terribly depressed at the hopelessness of being a Texans fan. And it does feel like there is somewhat of an inevitability that's starting to build a little bit with this Texas team. Like, is the script already written for the Texans that this last stretch of the season will kind of give you, well, not kind of, it'll definitely give you a lot of answers in that. But it feels like you're starting to set in where, and hey, we kind of know how this is going to finish out, and it'll probably be a situation where then you come into the playoffs and it's one and done, and then, hey, let's head off to the offseason and try and get this right for next year.
What you're really asking is something that I was mentioning before the show here. If the script is written and they face either the Ravens or the Chargers, and oh, by the way, they then go to face either the Chiefs or the Bills, that doesn't bode well, obviously, considering how they're playing. Is this season a waste?
Ooh, that's a tough question to ask. Waste is tough.
Yeah.
In terms of what your expectations were, what they put into this squad,
It's definitely a disappointment because we did not.
Is that a euphemism for a waste? 713-572-4610. Look, we're not. Look, let me make this very clear. I am, obviously every time the Texans play, I want to see them do something. I want it for our city. I want it for me. I want it, be happen ever. I want these things to not be the case. But if the script is written, Reggie, and they don't appreciably improve, and they either lose at home, and by the way, they probably will be underdogs at home to either the Ravens or the Chargers, if I had to guess. That they would be underdogs.
If you're talking playoffs at that point.
Yeah. And then,
because by the way, they are 2-point favorites at home versus the Dolphins?
Yes. And then let's which is kind of a push, but and then let's say they do somehow manage to win that game, then go either to Kansas City or Buffalo and get beat. Based on what we're seeing, that would be the odds. Is this season a waste? Because it's the same thing you did last year. And you invested Stephon Diggs, you invested Joe Mixon, you invested, so much more. You had high expectations. You brought in Danico Autry, had high expectations for C.J. Stroud, high expectations for wide receiver development, and Nico Collins having an incredible year, which he is, but he's missed some. And you do all those things to invest into this season, and it's the same script. Is this season a waste?
I really hesitate to call it a waste, although from the
How about this? Waste of time.
That's where I was getting at.
Yeah, waste of time, not waste necessarily, because I know that's harsh.
From the 832, definitely a waste. Interesting. But on the YouTube, no, you found out that you weren't ready to win big games. Just because you had unrealistic expectation doesn't make it a waste. And another yes comes in on the text line on if you have that circumstance where it kind of plays out, you go to the playoffs, 4 seed, you lose at home, and it's a one and done.
Or you win and that's the divisional round.
Right. I don't think it's fully a waste. Like, you learn more about this team. I do think that there's some clear developmental things, right? You've developed your defense. D'Amico Ryans has fully put his hand on this defense to the point where I think you found a defense that is somewhat sustainable as well, because so much of this defense, or so little of this defense, I should say, is based on the things that don't translate year over year, right? One of the things we talked about was the idea of being a turnover defense, and they have turned the ball over, but it hasn't. This defense has not been predicated on the turnovers are what make it go.
Yeah,
right. Turnovers is one of those things that, like the football nerds will tell you, that can be a little little dicey carrying over year to year. The things that they do when they're doing it well, rushing the passer, that translates year over year. Tackling, that translates, right?
Yeah.
And you found talent that is going to be here.
Cornerbacks.
At least the top end cornerbacks,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
But I think that you have things that are going to translate over year when it comes to the defense. I don't think that is a waste, right? You have found yourself what is going to be a foundational thing, and you have players. Azeez Al-Shaair is going to be here, right? Danico Autry, you still have him under contract. Obviously, Will Daniil, those pieces are established. The thing that feels wasteful, if you want to go there, is offensively when you have all this talent and it feels like you haven't, you've been struggling for 13 weeks of football, 14 weeks, with including the bye, to figure out how to put it all together and have that, go at the highest levels of the engine, right? And that's the thing that feels kind of wasteful, because I don't know that you things out. Again, I think that you could take the week-to-week way that the team views this development, where it's like, hey, get better, win games, get better, right? You could look at that from a season-long perspective of get better, learn things about your team. Defensively, I think you've done that. Offensively, I think that's one of the questions, and I guess you have learned some things, but they feel like they're negative things. That the offensive line, as currently constituted, does not work. That you need to have some changes there, right?
Yeah.
You brought in Joe Mixon. He will still be here. That's a good thing, right? You have Nico Collins signed to a long-term deal, and you've seen that you can actually really lean an offense on him. I think you've learned some things, so I wouldn't fully call it a waste, but it definitely would feel like a disappointment.
But here's where I think how you parse it out, how you explain it matters, because everything you're saying is true. Offensive line, you're going to make some changes, maybe get better. Defense, you found some things that are translatable to the future.
Absolutely.
Some players individually, you found some things that are translatable to the future. But none of what you're saying, Reggie, has to do with this year. Like my question is, was this season, based on everything that you built toward this season, a waste? I'm really curious what fans think, if it plays out the way all the handicappers are going to make it out to play out. Obviously you can upset some teams. You can maybe go into Kansas City and win and shock the world, and all of a sudden we're ready to throw a parade because we're going into the AFC Championship game. But all the things you're saying, I totally agree with. But moving forward, sure. I'm very interested in what fans say. Text us 713-572-4610 or message us on YouTube, because I'm talking about.
I get you. The opportunity
this season,
the opportunity that presents. All right,
this season.
I was thinking in the arc of
and that's
right?
accurate. I'll still be optimistic next year,
right?
Because all the things you said. But what I'm saying was 2024. If it plays out the way we think it's going to play out, and the way handicappers say it should play out, was it a waste of time?
Well, I mean, yes, because I think when you talk about kind of opportunities, right, you had plenty of opportunities to put your best foot forward, and you haven't. So I think from that perspective, yes. But this was a team that we know early on in the development of the life cycle, or the kind of the arc of like a team. And I think that you have seen some development. It hasn't progressed in the same way. It hasn't been linear as we've kind of expected. So that's the larger arc. But I think, yes, I get what you're saying, right? You have an opportunity in this season, and for the most part, it looks like you've let a lot of that opportunity slip past you. I think that's the beauty of at least American sports in this way. It does not compare to, let's say, Premier League soccer, where all of the season, all of that counts points-wise towards your end goal. This thing is going to hinge heavily on some games towards the end of the season and in the playoffs. If it goes the way that it goes, yes, it could be a waste. You could very quickly change that by getting yourself right and playing good football. The likelihood of that happening, got some questions.
Well, and the other thing, Figgy, is we, it wasn't just us being, rose-colored glasses. I mean, national shows across the board. Pick a network, pick a show. Boy, this is one of the most talented teams in the NFL. Boy, this looks like a Super Bowl team. We know those things were all out there. Boy, look at Stroud this year. He could be the best quarterback in the NFL. Forget moving forward, because we're all going to be optimistic again in the offseason and the draft and all that stuff. I'm talking about this season based on what we expected.
Yeah, I think it's a disappointment. I think it is. I love watching football, so I wouldn't say waste of time, but I think the season was a waste, man, because we seen it all throughout the offseason. C.J. Stroud making the runs and making the rounds, and Stephon Diggs, trade for Stephon Diggs, and Joe. I expected this offense to be looking like the greatest show on turf.
Yeah.
And maybe that's me just kind of.
But it wasn't just you.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
I said maybe that's me just thinking, we gonna get far, but. Nah, it will be a disappointment if they get bounced out the wild card or maybe the divisional round.
And you have to figure some things out on offense, but I think that if is still there.
Yeah.
You got to hope that bye week allowed them to really do some self-scouting, that they're going to get themselves.
They have to get a lot better real quick.
And it starts against Miami. It starts with that game on Sunday against the Miami Dolphins. Like, do you show yourself to have at least figured some things out and be progressing in the right direction? Because then all of this can start feeling a little bit better, because right now I understand the depressed feeling that can be there and the inevitability.
Just surprise us, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Just surprise us.
I will say the other side of this is year 2. So it's not like we in year 3 or 4 or something like that. Now we got to start looking at contracts.
Yeah.
This is to say, like, we think they was gonna get that far last year. So maybe we gotta take the glasses off and look around and say this is year 2, and maybe we still got some time.
Yeah.
Unlike the window is open.
Yes, the window is
still open,
and you want to progress yourself further towards getting through it.